Hi everybody, thank you for tuning in. I'm Art, ex-Scapegoat, aka the bad character, the failure, the one who deserved what she got. And according to family legend, I will die alone and unloved because of my demonic ways. So welcome, and tune in at your own risk, because prolonged exposure to what I have to say may lead to healthy boundaries, no longer blaming yourself, and possibly the loss of that membership of Everything is the Scapegoat's Fault Club. Today I'm going to talk to you guys about why we scapegoated survivors often get sucked into terrible, toxic relationships. The kind that will reinforce the false stories that we tell ourselves, the false stories that we grew up in and that were told to us over and over and over again. And stories such as us being unworthy and broken and somehow always to blame. And as we grow up, we begin to tell ourselves those very same things, because that's what we have been conditioned to do. And you can go no contact with your toxic family, but if you haven't done the inner work to heal and to change how you see yourself and how you approach relationships, then the story won't end there. Your plight won't end after you go no contact or low contact. The same dynamics are going to slip back into your life over and over and over again, just wearing a different face each time. And even if you never speak to your family again, and even if logically you feel ready to move on, and you know logically that what happened to you wasn't your fault, that you come from a dysfunctional family, that the narcissistic parent, the toxic parent who raised you and who blamed you for everything that's ever happened in the family and in their life, and so on and so forth, even though logically you know that all of this is just a projection. It's just them denying the truth and trying to find someone to blame so that they don't have to take accountability for themselves. Even though you know all this, deep down inside, in your felt sense, there's a feeling that will continue pulling you to re-experiencing these dynamics over and over and over again. So I want to talk about that with you, and I want to name all the reasons why this happens over and over again, so that you can develop self-awareness and introspection. So first of all, it's all about the imprint that they left within you. Because when you grow up in an environment where love is conditional and your self-worth is constantly being undermined and constantly being told that you're terrible and you're evil and you have a bad character and so on, and that you deserve the abuse that you got, those messages don't only affect your thoughts, but they will actually embed themselves in your nervous system. And from the earliest stages of our life, when we're children, when we're infants, when we're toddlers, our survival depends on the attachment that we have with our parents. Because, if we lose our parents, if we don't have the attachment with them, we don't survive. And when bad things happen, in the environment, like when we are raised in a toxic environment and bad things happen, as children, we will have internalized all of those things as being our fault, because that's what children do. Children, when they're surrounded by terrible things, when they are dealing with toxic parents, they will believe that they are the reason why their parents are toxic. And this is a survival instinct. And so we will have internalized responsibility, for the dysfunction on a very deep instinctual level. This is not just logical. And what feels safe and normal will always be tied to our beginnings, which were chaotic and neglectful and abusive. So a child's nervous system will learn to accept these things as familiar and as normal and as safe, even though they're not, because that was how you began your life on this earth. And so your nervous system will become attuned to this tension and to this unpredictability and to criticism. And it will interpret those things as familiar, and it will be sort of like a signal that this is the connection that you're seeking. And when you grew up in these kinds of conditions as adults, you may unconsciously seek relationships that mirror these patterns. Not because it's healthy, obviously, but because it feels known, it's familiar, and it's what you're used to. As we grow older and as we enter, relationships, we find partners, our nervous system is going to be attuned to this tension that we grew up with this unpredictability, with the criticism. And it will interpret those things as familiar signals of connection. And so when you grow up in these relationships, familiarity, will feel safe to us, even though it's dangerous. Your nervous system will confuse familiar with safe. And it will confuse criticism and walking on eggshells and being criticized as normal, because that was the normal in your childhood. And so you may unconsciously seek it. And we will try to repeat situations that are unresolved so that we can resolve our open wounds. So if you were never loved for who you were, if you were emotionally neglected, if you were always criticized, if you were always feeling rejected, if all those typical things that we scapegoats go through, we may try to actually subconsciously seek to recreate these situations in other relationships so that we can fix them. And so we may think, okay, maybe this is how I'm going to heal this wound. If I can just fix this, if I can just fix this in different relationships, if I can recreate the situation in different relationships, maybe I can fix it and maybe I can heal this wound. And of course, this happens in your subconscious. You're not conscious of it. This is not something that is logical. This is in the felt sense. This is physical. It's like when you fall in love, it's not logical. It's a physical, intuitive, it's all about feeling. Even though, whoever you might be falling in love with is not good for you and it's dysfunctional and so on. It's a feeling. And this brings me to the topic of the rescuer and rescue dynamic. When I was young, when I was a teenager and young adult, my experience with relationships was really unhealthy. I was so desperate to be rescued, to be loved, to be seen. I was so desperate. And I also was attracted to dysfunctional, unhealthy men because I had this fantasy that I could rescue them. And if I rescued them, then our love will be powerful enough and would prevail. This is sort of a fantasy of this mutual salvation instead of this balanced partnership. A healthy relationship is I take care of myself, you take care of yourself, and we meet in the middle. And we support each other and we're there for each other, but we're not dependent on each other for anything. You are a whole, balanced person all on your own. They are a whole, balanced person all on their own, and you hang out together. This is the balanced approach. But when you've been conditioned to earn love by fixing others, because that's what happens when you're a scapegoat, and when you come from dysfunctional families, it's all about fixing people. It's all about trying to fix your narcissistic parents' problems. It's all about trying to fix their issues, fix their pain. And if you can fix it, then maybe they will love you, right? And so we may unconsciously seek people that we can save, hoping that they will also save us in return. And this really mimics the dynamic that we grew up in. And you know, one thing that I experienced as well in this subject was that I felt like, you know, when a person that I fell in love with, or that I sort of found lust with, that's a better way of putting it, is dysfunctional, I felt like, you know what, I can handle it. I'm strong enough to handle it. They're all too weak to do it, but I'm strong. I'm stronger than all of them, and I can take it. And I'm gonna show this person that I can take everything that they shout on me. And that way, they will love me. Again, this is a really toxic, unhealthy mindset, you know, because it's actually what we've been conditioned to believe, that, you know, we have to be strong enough to take abuse, and if we don't take it, if we don't take the abuse, then we are weak. That's what my family taught me. Every time that she would, my mother was my abuser, and every time that she would abuse, she would hit, she would psychologically dismantle me, and I had these really strong, normal, healthy reactions. The rest of my family always told me that I should do better, that I should handle it better, that I should be stoic about it, that I should be quiet about it, that I should handle it better. And so that was part of my training. Now, another point is that manipulators can sense your vulnerabilities from miles and miles away. They are so good at reading other people's emotions, and that's how they manipulate, because it's not logical. They will play with your emotions, and that's how you get sucked into those relationships. If you crave love, they will love bomb you. If you crave to be seen, they will make you feel heard and validated, you know, in a way that you've never experienced it before. They will give you everything that you crave in the beginning. But that's not love, that's bait. And abusive and manipulative people are really skilled at mirroring your unmet needs to create this lasting emotional bond. And for someone who grew up without attention or recognition or love, you know, unconditional love, we are starving for those things. We are starving for those things. And manipulators will know. They will see it and they will know. And this leads to our self-worth being tied to serving others. You may believe that your value comes from your ability to serve, and not simply for you to just be yourself and to be loved for who you are without killing yourself for somebody. That sets you up to have relationships where people will take and take and take and take, and you will give and give and give and give. And when you give, they'll be so grateful in that moment, right? But then later on, when you're the one who needs something, when you're the one who, you know, would like to have something given in return, that's not, often it's not gonna happen, because people will go, oh sorry, no, I'm busy, oh sorry, I have so many things to do today. That's happened to me very often. People that called me for favors, and they would play with my empathy, whether it was like through coaching or through like animal related things, because I'm a zoo therapist as well, and I've worked with animals for a very long time. And so people will often call, my cat has an issue, or oh, my son has an issue, or whatever, you know. And I would freely go and give my services to those people. Gosh, you know, I gotta tell you this story. There was this one lady, I remember this. She told me that she was too poor to afford therapy for her son. And I realized later on, way too late, that she was actually the biggest narcissist. And she told me that she's so poor, and that her son needs therapy and all that stuff. And seeing as I am a zoo therapist, so I work with animals to accompany people towards the better being, I said, okay, sure, I can take on your son. I'll do it for like, you know, $20. It's okay, I understand you're poor. I understand, I want to help, you know. And a couple of months later, she pulls into my driveway with a brand new car, a brand new, beautiful car, brand new. I couldn't afford anything at that time because I was still, in the beginning of starting my business. I was in the beginnings of, when you start a business, it's not so easy, right? You got to build your clientele. There's a lot to it. And so I was struggling during that time. And she pulls out with this brand new car and she tells me, oh, we're going on a nice family vacation to the tropics all together. And I was like, okay, wow, $20 per session for the past year. And here she is pulling up with this nice car and telling me that she's going on a nice vacation, all things that I could not afford. And that incident made me realize that my boundaries were just, I was still, even though I left my family, I was still setting myself up to be used and abused because of my empathy. So remember, your self-worth is not tied to service. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Your service is something that you need to reserve for special cases, people that you care about, people that genuinely, there's a back and forth established in that kind of thing. But you really have to be careful with how much you give in relationships because people will take advantage of you. And another point that I'm going to make when it comes to being attracted to a dysfunctional relationship is that the most important point is that in the felt sense, in our bodily feelings, discomfort will equal to with genuine safety. Discomfort is genuine safety. Okay, when you grow up in a toxic family system, your nervous system gets trained to expect unpredictability, criticism, sudden emotional explosions, constant tension. Those things become normal. And so when we meet someone who's healthy, who's calm, who's respectful, who's consistent, who's emotionally safe, your body might actually react in ways that are really not expected. You could feel bored with that person because there's no adrenaline, from constant conflict. All of a sudden, everything's normal, everything's boring. You might feel suspicious, like you don't trust this person, like you're waiting for something terrible to happen at any moment, and that could sabotage something really good. And you may feel really uncomfortable. I even felt when I was young, disgust towards healthy people. I felt the emotion of disgust. I was disgusted by healthy people. There was something about it that I just couldn't deal with. It was so ingrained within me to be attracted towards dysfunctional, men in my life, that when I met someone who was, healthy and kind towards me, I was like, ew, no, it's strange how it happens, but that's what it is. Intimacy, true intimacy and trust is actually so much more vulnerable and difficult to us than dealing with drama and dysfunction. It's new territory. It's something that we're not used to. And this is a trauma adaptation, okay? Your body, your brain have adapted to survive in a high alert, unhealthy, toxic environment. And so peace is like a foreign concept. It can even feel threatening or disgusting. So the wounded parts of you feel more comfortable with what you already know, with the familiar. And this is something that I've had to work on and I've had to break in order to have healthy relationships in my life, in order to permit for healthy people to get into my life, and in order to keep toxic people out. And this is why many of us survivors will actually push healthy people away unintentionally. And it's not because we don't want to have healthy relationships, it's just because it feels safer to be in that familiar territory of dysfunction, or to just be alone entirely and just not let people in at all anymore. Healthy people that come from healthy families the familiar is going to be good, it's going to be positive. But for us who came from dysfunctional families, unfortunately, we have to go against our instincts when it comes to these things. The other thing is you got to remind yourself that your worth is not tied to how much you fix or tolerate other people's bullshit, okay? You can say no anytime you need to. You need to honor your feelings, and you have to protect your time and energy. Saying no can be absolutely terrifying when you've been abandoned by your family, or where they have taught you this mindset that saying no, when you say no, you become evil. When you set a boundary, that means that you're going to be abandoned by your family. Because that's essentially what happens. We set boundaries with our families of origin. We say, no, I'm not going to tolerate this behavior anymore. You know, this is what happened to me. I'm not going to tolerate this behavior anymore. I can't have a relationship with this person because she's making me sick. Unless she seeks therapy and gets better, I can't have a relationship with this woman. And this no led to abandonment. And I was completely abandoned by anybody related to that woman. Okay? So saying no, when you try and navigate the real world, it becomes so terrifying. And this is something that you have to work on. Even before you consider having a partner or something like that, you have to work on setting your boundaries. You have to work on really getting to know who you are and getting to know yourself in the way that, okay, I'm not compromising these areas of my life. This is a no compromise, zone for me. And this is the stuff that I can tolerate, that I'll compromise, and this is who I am. And whether you like it or not is just not my problem, because not everybody will like you. But when you're yourself, that's when you really attract the people that matter, and that you want in your life, right? You don't want to keep shape-shifting all the time to please other people, because they never really get to know you. And that's not really legitimate love. That's just you shape-shifting because you're afraid of being yourself. And when you do this, other people can't really get to know you, and you can't really get to know people either, because you don't really get to know a person really until you can really truly be yourself, and then see how they respond to you. And if they respond negatively, it's not because there's something wrong with you, or it's not tied to your self-worth. It's just you're not compatible, and that's it. Move on, okay? And you have to reframe safety as your new normal, even though a relationship might feel boring. This is actually how healing will, can start entering your life, when it comes to relationships. When you start inviting people in that are completely unfamiliar, and seeking relationships where you have respect without having to earn it, seeking relationships where you don't need to rescue anybody, you don't need to save anybody, and they don't need to save you either. It takes a long time to undo, a long time to undo the damage that our families have done to us, and to feel like we are worth something, that we are not worthless unless we fix or rescue other people. What happened to you is not your fault. You were raised in a family who was dysfunctional and who refused to do something about it. And now, in order to break this cycle, you have to do the work of going completely against everything that you've ever known and towards something new. So I hope this helped you at least a little bit. And remember to always repeat the mantra, I love myself, I trust myself, and I'll see you soon.